This Black Friday, I didn't really buy too much for myself, but I did get one thing to treat myself with. This 2TB MicroSD card from TEAMGROUP. Now, TEAMGROUP may not be a brand you're familiar with, but they are a legitimate brand and they sell SSDs and whatnot. I even have a TEAMGROUP SSD in my computer and it's been running pretty well. On paper, this MicroSD card is on par with all of the highest recommended Steam Deck MicroSD cards. A2 cards like the SanDisk Extremes, or the Sabrent Rocket, or the Samsung cards. All of these are great options, and it's time to see if TEAMGROUP also makes a great option as well. This is one of the few microSD cards to feature a 2TB version. After formatting on the Steam Deck, you have 1.7 terabytes of usable storage. So I want to figure out just how fast this microSD card is in comparison to my other microSD cards, and to see if you really need 2 terabytes of microSD card storage, and if it's even worth it. Here are some numbers for two of my best microSD cards, the SanDisk Extreme and the Sabrent Rocket. It may look like a huge difference between these two, but in practice, they're very similar in performance, especially where Steam games are concerned. And this is me testing out the TEAMGROUP SD card, and I'd say it's very similar performance, which is a good thing because it's within spec. There is a limit to how fast the Steam Deck can read microSD cards. After all, the Steam Deck features a UHS-I microSD card reader. What this means is that among all microSD cards, your A2 cards will be the fastest among UHS-I microSD cards. There do exist UHS-II microSD cards, but those are far more expensive and not all hardware supports UHS-II speeds. If you have an ROG Ally or a Legion Go, both of those support UHS-II microSD cards, and in theory, read and write performance on these UHS-II cards should be much faster on the Legion Go or ROG Ally. I hope we get UHS-II support on the Steam Deck too. But now we have to ask the more pertinent question: is it actually worth having 2 terabytes of storage? And the answer is, if you can afford it, then yeah. I mean, let's be honest. You should buy as much storage as you can possibly afford, and this happens to be the most I can afford and also the most that they make for microSD cards. Would I buy a 4TB microSD card? I might. I might just do it. At the end of the day, it is just a microSD card that's more capacitive than most others. Here's a price to gigabyte chart featuring many of the popular Steam Deck SD cards. Anything marked with an asterisk had a special sale price, so I included it in the data, so data may be a little different later down the line when prices change. The SanDisk Ultra was the cheapest SD card for a reason, because it was an A1 SD card and as such it had slower write speeds than the others. But these days it's not worth buying a SanDisk Ultra because every other A2 microSD card is very competitive in price. Not to mention the SanDisk Ultra only goes up to 1.5 terabytes. There's no 2 terabyte model of the SanDisk Ultra. The SanDisk Extreme is among the most expensive SD cards on the list. And for good reason. It's the reigning champion of microSD cards. There's also a 2 terabyte version that's available to buy right now on Amazon. The TEAMGROUP T-Create Smart SD card that I got is very competitive with everything else, and it is a true value champion if it's on sale, which I did buy it on sale, but I will say this, if it's not on sale then it's 100% not worth it at all. Like, MSRP is actually more expensive than the SanDisk Extreme's own MSRP. So if you're gonna get a 2 terabyte microSD card and the TEAMGROUP one isn't on sale, buy the SanDisk one. It took a long time for Samsung to make a 1 terabyte microSD card. I know they weren't available when the Steam Deck first released, so now they have one available, but now they're falling behind in the 2 terabyte race. There is no Samsung Evo Select 2 terabyte microSD card. There isn't even a 1.5 terabyte model either. Now, I haven't used the PNY Pro Elite Prime SD card, but I've seen it recommended a couple of times in certain Steam Deck-centric circles. The 1 terabyte model is quite expensive and quite possibly not worth it, but the 1.5 terabyte model is only like $10 more and it gives you like 1.5 times the storage. Like, honestly, this might be the best value one, and it's not even on a sale price. But I've also heard that PNY is not the best microSD card manufacturer. I don't know, I really haven't tried one out myself, but that's the price point. And the Sabrent Rocket is pretty expensive when it's not on sale, so They also don't make a 2TB or a 1.5TB model either, so I couldn't include that either. So at the end of the day, don't buy the SanDisk Ultra because it's the slowest one and it's not even a great value anymore compared to the others. As for another microSD card I cannot recommend under any price point, the Lexar Play. Listen, Lexar's a real brand and they've made some good hard drives and stuff. But no, Lexar's microSD card likes to be stuck and overheat in my Steam Deck. As for the rest of them, you can't go wrong with any of them, just buy whichever one's the cheapest one when you need a new microSD card, okay? Everything but the SanDisk Ultra is an A2 card, so these are among the fastest cards you can use on your Steam Deck. There are a couple of things you should recognize though. First and foremost, this is a microSD card. And as good as these microSD cards are, they still pale in comparison to SSDs. But of course, replacing your SSD inside your Steam Deck is an arduous task for people that don't know how to open up electronics. And of course, a microSD card is a lot easier to install, and it's an easy way to just add more storage to your Steam Deck. Another thing too, let's say if you want to transfer files or games from one microSD card to another. As long as both microSD cards are formatted for the Steam Deck, you should be able to plug in like a dongle or a dock that has a microSD card slot, and now you're ready to transfer games or files over. And you can use Steam to transfer games to and from different microSD cards or your SSD as well. The TEAMGROUP microSD card doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it just expands it. It may not immediately change your life, but when you really need that extra storage, you'll be thankful you have one of these. Have you considered pairing your 2TB SSD with a 2TB microSD card? Because if you do, then you'll have 4TB of total storage for all of your games on your Steam Deck. And some people are going to ask what I use to test out my drives, and I use this right here, KDiskMark. You can use this to essentially benchmark any sort of disk or drives that you have. Got an SSD? You can test it. Got a microSD card? You can test it as well. You can get the Flatpak version on the Discover App Store, but it's best if you go on their GitHub page and download the app image directly. To let my drives warm up, I run 5 tests in a row and then take the results from the final one. If you like this video, please press the like button and check out our other videos. And if you like those other videos as well, be sure to press the subscribe button and share the good gospel of high-tech lowlife with your friends. Furthermore, we have a community Discord for enlightened individuals such as you. And if you wish to further support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description.